morning, everyone. Yay, you're all there and can hear me. Brilliant. Okay. It's great to have so many of you join us this morning for our first webinar entitled Agile Working Through COVID-19 and Beyond. There are lots of familiar faces today, but also some new ones. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Anita Janes, founder of the Business Exchange. We're a positive news force for the southwest of England, serving Bath and Somerset and Swindon and Wiltshire. In print, online, through networking, events and awards, we help businesses connect and grow, flying the flag for the region and promoting the message that the Southwest is home to a dynamic business scene. This morning, I'm delighted to introduce 3 clients who we've built long-term relationships with. They are OJO Solutions, Datasharp Integrated Communications and Computer Network Defence, CND. Now is a time when we're all being forced to review our existing business offering and its systems and processes. Today, I think we have pulled together a bit of a dream team to look at business and digital transformation and what that might look like in the future, covering digital solutions to help virtualize your business, remote working communications to keep connected with your customers and team, and cybersecurity to ensure your business is safe online. I'm just going to show you my screen, hopefully anyway. And this is just a little bit of a rundown of this morning. So first of all, I'm going to invite to speak Nathan Baranowski from OJO Solutions. Then we'll move on to Will Wood from Datasharp Integrated Solutions, and then Andy Cuff from CND, and then we'll move on to our Q&A. We've already got 3 questions that I've put up onto the screen there for us to go through this morning. And if you have any questions that pop up, do put them on Slido during the session. If you go to the HTTPS link in the slide and pop in the event ID, we'll be able to see your comments and questions, and we'll make sure you're involved that way. You can also raise a hand via the Starleaf app as well. So let me introduce our first speaker this morning, Nathan. Nathan is Managing Director of OJO Solutions. He's the chief maker of making things happen through technology. Nathan and his team organise and help organisations see what is possible through strategic digital thinking and make it happen by developing beautifully crafted technology. OJO are at the forefront of digital transformation and have achieved great recognition for their work in supporting and enabling small and larger enterprises, as well as ambitious charities, achieve their potential. Nathan, please come into the spotlight.
Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping this is coming up on screen. If not, I need to just do a few things to get that there, but are we seeing that up on screen already? Can you see a slide deck? Yep. Okay, fantastic. So,
yeah, you're good to go.
Excellent. Great. Good morning, everyone. Yes, great to be here in these somewhat strange times. So my job is to open this process and give you a bit of a broad theme around the topic of agile working post-COVID and beyond. So I think I'm going to kind of start with really just a reflection back in my view. So we all remember those times when we used to commute to work, sit in traffic jams all day, and we might even go to London for that wonderful 30-minute meeting and wonder, why did we do that? That world's changed somewhat. We don't go to offices anymore. We certainly don't live 9 to 5. We don't go to lovely networking breakfasts. I do miss those breakfasts, or lunches or dinners, where we used to shake people's hands. Today, it's a world which is very different. And it's also a world when, I don't know if you remember, when IT didn't work, how great it's been over the last few months and how well it's worked and stepped up to the challenge. I work in digital futures. That's my world, although I don't think anyone could speculate on what's happened of late, and I'd hedge my bets that not anyone had this on their risk register as a reasonable contender to cause an impact in the way that it has to their business. Just over 2 months ago, our world was turned upside down. Whether you were well prepared for this or not, I think the seismic shift that has happened in response to this crisis has impacted impacted us all overnight very, very significantly. We now live in a world which is very much digital first, one where digital has moved from being nice to have or a strategic idea or something that could happen possibly in the future and it'd be great when we get there, to a world where we live in that now having a phone call has become a novelty, certainly for me, where our worlds are yet another video conference as we sit here today, where we FaceTime our families, where we participate in pub quizzes on House Party or Zoom, or we live stream and consume information over YouTube. Our world at the moment, frankly, in my world anyway, is a box. We live in a little cupboard in my house as I sit here now, and that's as it is. But that's not the world that we need to move into, nor the one that we can move forward from. We're in a new normal, everyone says, and it's a fun new normal. It's very different. It's a world where we've got a very interesting relationship with technology now. Whether we love or hate it, maybe it's a choice, a bit like a forced marriage we're in at the moment. Technology, unfortunately, is here to stay. Our fears that we had pre-COVID seem to have been overcome. We've achieved what we thought possibly was impossible in days. We've done what we thought we couldn't do. We've learnt. We've learnt things that we thought we never had to learn before, and we've stepped forward into a world where our relationship with technology is maturing. We've developed new skills. We've adjusted our attitudes towards technology. We've changed our behaviors and approaches in order to run things like this. We work in very different ways. That is digital maturity. Through maturing our relationship and understanding of technology, we can create responsible relationships with it. It's not about being consuming of technology in a way which overpowers us, all those fear-mongering elements of how AI is going to take over our jobs, or that social media is bad or good. Actually, responsible relationships enable us to enable technologies to serve a simple purpose, helping us to make our lives easier and simpler. And I think no one can argue more that in this crisis, technology has stood up to that and done its job very well. It's served its purpose and its function. It has delivered for us easier and simpler lives and enabled us to keep moving in these times. Technology without a purpose, in simple terms, is just a machine, a box, a bot, a bit of widget. It's nothing. It doesn't help us to do what we need to do. But like any relationship, we must work at it. And in order to do that, we get the most out of it. Digital maturity is about delivering your goals and ambitions faster and more effectively. And through maximizing your relationship as a human with the technology, you can deliver more. We've seen some remarkable examples of this over the past 5 weeks, from people embracing kindness when it comes together across this country every Thursday night to clap our hands and thank those across the country for the work they're doing, right through to how AI and machine learning has found its place on the forefront fighting against COVID. Technology today with humans is doing some phenomenal things. So what is digital maturity? In simple terms, it's about three things: people, process, and technology. Purposefully, it's about technology. About people, rather. I'll get that the right way around. That would help. It's about technology, and it's about putting humans first. The technology needs to come at the end. To mature our relationship with it, we have to understand how we will work. We as people become the beginning part of that, whether it's developing new skills, understanding the expectations that we have in a post-COVID world, from our customers, from our staff. Technology is going to play an important role in that. Ensuring that we have the capability to be able to operate in that more digitally orientated world is really key. The process element is no different than what we've seen technology do for us for many years. How, simply put, can we get from A to B most efficiently and effectively, with the best experience for both us and our customers? Technology isn't there just to do something. A great example of that for me was seeing that B&Q has opened up and spent my 1 hour waiting in a queue to get on their website, to then spend 25 minutes trying to find something, found it, said it's available for delivery, go through 16 other steps, then find that actually the thing isn't available for delivery at all. What a waste of time. That is not good customer experience, and that's not good use of technology. There's things that we can do much better in order to effectively deliver those sorts of things. When we've got the right skills and we've got the right process, we can engineer the technology to work for us. You're going to hear some fantastic examples of that from the latest two speakers coming up. The technology itself is about systems, it's about information, it's about how we deliver through our customer-facing items, be that websites, be that portals, chatbots, apps, through to how our CRMs and our finance systems come together in order to deliver for us in the way we need to. How we use those tools to ensure that we maintain our legality, that we do what we do safely, and we can communicate effectively wherever we are. That, in simple terms, is tech. That is digital maturity. I always say in delivering digital transformation that it's okay to push people off cliffs, as long as that we tell them they have parachutes. COVID has been one of those great instances for me where we've all been thrown off a cliff. We've all realized that we've got parachutes. And now as we settle into a world where we're thinking about the new normal and we're gliding back down to land on our feet, we're turning attention to where next. The reality is digital is transforming our lives, and it's been doing that for years. We've taken a huge leap forward now in 2020, and coming out of lockdown in the coming months, we're going to face some of the biggest challenges that we've probably ever faced in trying to return to whatever future that is set in front of us. There's going to be different opinions, different desires. Some of us love where we are, like Marmite. Some of us are going to hate it. At this moment in time, we need to know that we need to work and live differently in perhaps what we could class in the IT world as a hybrid model, one which is both about the virtual and one which is both about the physical. But I think there's some funny and emerging themes that are coming already, which are going to help us fundamentally in the way that we step forward. First is a simple one, which is machines are coming. The role that AI has played in supporting us today and the move away from fear into enabling us is really key. But also we've seen some really fantastic examples of how robotics can reduce risk and enable continuity. We're going to see a lot more of that already in the States, where perhaps things like driverless cars are much more common. We're seeing the move from human to robotics in order to deliver things for us, in order to allow us to communicate and engage in different ways. Drones delivering, robots cleaning, all of that is there, all the way through to customer services being delivered by chatbots. Health apps to help us to stay safe, they're all coming. The opportunity for us to use those technologies in a really different way in order to support us in these crises and beyond, innovation comes fast and thick in these sorts of areas. Flexible working. Well, we all need to be flexible at the moment. Certainly for myself, I have a young family, and one of them is at school, the other one isn't. And we need to do quite a lot of work, and we need to work flexibly around those that are in that environment, as well as kind of understanding how we need to do. In this COVID crisis, we certainly stress test to the nth degree the opportunity to go beyond the 9 to 5, to work in different ways, to achieve better outcomes. We've also had the opportunity to test lots of things which you've probably never heard of before. Everything from Teams to FaceTime to Google Hangouts to Starleaf, as we are on today. The opportunity for us to choose and recruit in really different ways will come. So moving forward, flexibility isn't just about saying, oh, we don't need to sit in an office, or that we don't need to operate on a 9 to 5, but very much about kind of actually how do we need to deliver our business. We could recruit people from different locations. We could think less about the formal office and more about the environment that we want to create. The biggest question that will come with that will be, how do we bring resilience to our workforce and ensure continuity as well as flexibility as we step forward? For us at OJO, a good example of that is we've always had the ambition of a 4-day week. That's something we are seriously considering now as we step forward into the world post-COVID, in order for us to achieve some of our ambitions around bringing creativity to our team stronger and better. Key in all of this, though, will be leaders. And one of the things that technology does very well is democratize and reduce down the power position that leaders sometimes wish to have. Collaboration tools and remote working opens the opportunity for us all to move into a world where we are a community of leaders, where we can, like social media, bring people together, give everyone a voice. But really importantly with that we can empower. One of the things that comes out of a crisis is we see the innovation, the speed and pace in which we can move. And then one of the really important bits here is that we can see that continuing. The expectation that people have on us as business owners and leaders to drive forward and make change happen faster and respond to it collectively is going to be really key. But also returning that to them, the power of people to be able to make those changes and choices and have those choices is going to be really key in the way that we move. Now, with every crisis, there is an opportunity. And for me, there is a silver lining. Within the way that we operate today and the move forward from here, we know that it's not going to be the same as it was. We know that we're probably going to be coming out of this in some sort of difference, that it's not going to be quite the same. We need to look for new customers, think about enhancing our experiences or reinventing or remodeling what was. We need to blend the virtual with the physical. We can see that with some fantastic examples of investments in moving gyms online and virtualizing classes, through to home cooking, through to shared cooking experiences. Things will change in the way that we work. Take that to a shop. We'll be able to go in now and just buy something, or do I need to try before I buy by bringing it home and looking at it virtually in a mirror, or seeing that sofa in my living room and then going to get it. The way that we consume things will change massively, and using immersive technologies in order to do that will be a big shift in that. That will also include things like cinemas and theatres. How do we bring those places into our homes in order for us to continue to experience them? We can blend all of those. We can use apps and other technologies in order to do that, and we'll see those opportunities rising more and more. The high street in this will be transformed, as well as our entertainment industry as well. Fundamentally with this, and I don't know where everyone else is, but for me personally, I think it's really key, is that we will start to see a better balance between what we need to do and what should be done. The expectation that we need to travel across the country in order to take a meeting will shift. We could do that, hopefully, and continue to do that using technologies like this. We'll also expect that our difference between what is important to us in our family life and our work life will start to change. I certainly know for myself that I very much cherish my 1 hour time to do exercise. And in some respects, that routine is forcing us to do and have a better work-life balance and get out and do more over the day. It's also a striking image to see how much of the impact of people sat at home and not moving has caused a relief on our environment. And climate change, I think, will become a big focus of how we operate and a big forefront in the way that we can think about how we step forward. It would be amazing if we can continue to hear the bird songs that we hear every morning, although perhaps not for you, Dave. I did see your tweet about that a while ago. Or perhaps that we can move to a rapidly shifting change and see that we can actually move to a zero carbon economy much faster than we thought. Finally, really for me, hubs. We all live in offices, we all work in offices. We've got one down the road. But actually the move away from that to much more community, actually, if we can change the way that we can interact, then actually perhaps we can work in a more collaborative way, bring people together in different ways, work together in different ways. The rise of the small office, I think, will continue, but those like the glove factory, those in the engine shed and others around the Southwest, I think, are going to be really key in the way that we work, the way that we bring people together in order to create that opportunity to interact, but at the same time, not be in a formal environment. I'll end with a simple slide, which is one that is transformation really isn't easy. And although I can say all these things, it's all lovely and it's theoretical, it isn't easy, and it's going to be hard. I think economically we're going to see some real big shifts, and it's going to be important to us that we think about that. My view, though, is one simple: we can build the future that we want by thinking about the future that we want to create. Technology is not going to be something that is there as a tool set that we can deploy. Technology is going to be part of our DNA as we move into that post-COVID world. Therefore, as humans, we need to think about how we want to be and use technology as best as we can in order to support us. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, Nathan. So, Anita, are you back to you, I think? Oh, I think you're muted as well, Anita. That's all right. Don't worry. I'll tell you what. I'll introduce myself while you sort out your microphone. So, my name's William Wood. I'm Director of Pre-Sales at Datasharp, and Anita was just about to hand over to me and introduce me most eloquently. But just to give you guys a bit of a rundown, I'm going to take you through a couple of the things from our world. So Datasharp are a comms business. So we deal with solutions across quite a number of vendors. I've been going about 20 years. I've been there 18 of those 20 years. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a bit of a screen share of a few slides that I've got at this end. Just to walk you through a couple of high-level pieces. I'll be, I think, remarkably quicker than Nathan, and probably far less eloquent. But just to introduce who we are so that you know what we're talking about here. So Datasharp are a comms business. We provide the things that you can see in front of you now, from things like phone systems, video conferencing, mobile, and data networks. And there was a few things I just wanted to walk through in terms of what are we seeing out there. So we've kind of noticed this coming in three main phases. So the first one, I think we're well and truly, at now. People have hit the initial coping phase. So with that, I mean, make it work, right? Send everyone home. Suddenly there's an acceptance of change from everybody that's involved, and it's pushed us down this road. And I think really that piece has happened. And a lot of businesses now are looking at the improvement phase, because, the novelty of working at home wears off. And businesses are looking to implement strategy around improving business as usual for those remote workers, and making sure that they, that they keep the wheels turning and do what they can to make the most of this set of circumstances. And possibly, I think in line with what Nathan was saying there is the evolve piece, which I think, is just what happens over time. People are already looking at the return to work strategies, but businesses are reviewing the fundamentals involved with how they operate. So if they're going to review things like travel cost, both to the office and back if required, but more importantly to meetings, because there's a lot of time and cost and everything involved in travel. Even the viability of business office space itself is going to be reviewed. If you can master reduction of all of those things, there are some enormous savings to be made. So I'm going to cover off just a couple of quick subjects on this. So mainly around, what we're classifying as the 3 Vs. These are the 3 technologies that we've seen people adopt very quickly. If they didn't have them in place, people have been turning them on very quickly. And if they do have them, they've been leaning on them very heavily. And these 3 Vs we've come across again and again are VoIP, VPN, and video. When I say video, I mean video conferencing, not iPlayer or Netflix or even Disney Plus. So I'm going to focus on 2 of these, because VPN is more a security piece, which is more CND's realm. So just to mention a couple of things on the VoIP front first of all. So people who have got historical, legacy on-premise phone systems have struggled a bit in this time, and so they've been forwarding calls to people's mobiles, and they've been doing what they can to make them work, and have been turning on new services at a rate of knots. So we've seen a lot of public cloud services out there like 8x8 and RingCentral and whatever. Obviously, doing very well. At Datasharp, we partner with, I think, across all of our various technologies, something like 38 different vendors. And our method, our way in which we work is to match the solution with the requirement. So we don't lead with any one technology. But what we do see is a difference between public cloud services, of which we do supply some of those, and private cloud and on-premise services. And the point is, and I guess the real point I want to mention here, is that there's choice. There's so much out there for people to dive into, some of which can happen instantly, some of which may take a few days to turn on, some of which may take a few weeks to work properly. But there's a lot out there right now. And the point is, don't just go with the first thing that you see. Make sure you have enough conversations with people about the technologies that you're going to deploy, because what's right for one company isn't necessarily right for the next. And that's one of the things that we do well here, is to listen with both ears, right, up front, and before making any sort of considered proposals from there. And then coming on to video conferencing, this has taken over our world at Datasharp for the last few weeks, because suddenly everyone can't attend meetings anymore in person. So what do? You lean on video. And again, I won't dwell too much on this, but just to point out three of the things that we've been seeing the most, or having the most interaction with, would be Microsoft Teams, Starleaf that we're on today, and Zoom. Microsoft Teams, Microsoft and Zoom have the most enormous marketing budgets. We all seen the TV adverts and things like that for them. And they all have strengths and weaknesses. For example, Microsoft Teams, you're in the Microsoft eco world, right? So you can rely on the rest of the Office 365 environment to get the most out of that. But it's very limited in terms of how many people can you see on the screen at any one time. Currently, it's a maximum of 4. There's talk of increasing that to maybe 9. But if you've got a 15-person conference, then that's not enough. It's also quite a closed environment. Zoom, by comparison, is very open. But my God, has it had a kicking over the last few weeks. I mean, we've all seen the news. Anyone that has Zoom and hasn't changed their password in the last 2 weeks, I would encourage you to do that. All 500 million passwords were extracted from Zoom. Usernames and passwords available on the dark web for under a penny a piece. So yeah, if you do have Zoom, please change your password. Obviously, there's all the other stuff about them not being properly encrypted, routing calls through China, and yet somehow their share price is still going through the roof because people rely on it. But you've got entire countries banning Zoom, certainly a lot of professional services organizations. Having said that, if what you want is a lot of the bells and whistles that it can provide, it's a really, really good platform. You just got to go into it with your eyes open. And then things like Starleaf, British company, doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles that Zoom has, but it's got by far the best security of any video conferencing platform, and is superb in my view. And all of these guys, they've seen increases that they could never have believed, and in the course of a few weeks, 900+% increase in usage. So I guess the point with video is that, and what I would just want to end on is a few best practices. If you're going to be leaning heavily on video conferencing at home, it's very different to walking into a building and shaking somebody's hand. And there are a few best practices, and this is just a bit down and dirty. Most of them are really obvious, so please forgive me if you know these already. But silly things like consider light. You should be in a well-lit room. Ideally, don't sit in front of a window, or you end up with a silhouette effect. But bear in mind that it's not all about what you can see. Equally, you have to consider what other people see when they're looking at you. So what is in your background? Is it a load of clutter? Is it a lot of screaming children? Is it both, right? So one thing to consider. Also, positioning the camera. No one really wants to look up your nose. And if you are looking down at a camera and have some extra chins on show, right, it's not a good look. So do consider where you actually position the camera and where you're looking. You want to try and get as close as you possibly can to having eye contact. And it can never be bang on, because cameras are always above the screen or below the screen. Definitely use a headset. I've been on a number of calls over the last few weeks. I think I've racked up 2,600 minutes of VC calls this month alone. And I've been on calls where you've had 5, 6, 7 people, and one of them hasn't used a headset, and all you get is echo, feedback, and bad things. Please use a headset. Don't be that one person that ruins it for everybody else. And this one is contentious, right? Because Wi-Fi is wonderful. But it's not a great technology. It's inherently lossy from that perspective. Unless you're very close to it and you have exceptional speeds, it is much better to plug your laptop into your network, right? You'll get much better reliable service. In the event your router is a million miles away from your office or wherever you've positioned your laptop, bear in mind that you can buy these power line adapters to just extend your network through your electrical cabling in your house. They're only 20 or 30 quid, but really, if there's a few things there that I would sincerely recommend you do. And that's me done. So just a little reference here to the Slido. If you've got any questions, we're going to do a little Q&A at the end. If you go to sli.do/83623, I know Anita posted this on the invite as well. Do go on there. Feel free to enter any questions for myself and Nathan and Andy to answer at the end. And that's me largely done until the Q&A session. So I will hopefully hand over to Anita now. Anita, is your mic working again?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Lots of useful tips there, Will. Thank you very much. And what I was going to say in my intro was Datasharp Integrated Comms are having a big year this year. It's their 20th anniversary. So are you going to do lots of nice things to celebrate when we can all get back together again?
Yeah. Haven't really thought about that so much, because we're all just stuck in our little boxes, as we quite rightly said. But yeah, absolutely. We're very much looking forward to a bunch of that.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to introduce Andy next, who is the founder and CEO of Computer Network Defence. For over 15 years, the company has helped protect the UK's military networks, businesses and organisations, both at home and abroad. Andy has built an international following as the go-to cyber expert with thousands of followers worldwide. So I've definitely bigged him up there. You've got a big stage now, Andy. Please do come into the spotlight.
Thank you very much, Anita. That's it's really nice to see so many people. I wasn't expecting to see so many people on a Wednesday morning, but I think the weather has probably helped a little bit with that. So without further ado, so my name is Andy Cuff, and my confession is I'm a security geek. I've been asked to talk about cybersecurity issues associated with COVID-19. And anyone who knows me will also know how difficult it is for me to just talk for 8 minutes, let alone about cybersecurity for only 8 minutes. And choosing some topics for today has been traumatic, to say the least. Let me just quickly share my screen, and I'll try and share the right one. Brilliant. Right, so hopefully that is on. I've also, I'm trialing the subtitle thing, which can be sporadic. I don't know whether that's appearing on the on your screen.
Yeah, that's showing well.
Sorry?
That's showing well. Yeah, you're all good.
I've been watching it, and it has been quite interesting to see some of its choices around wording. And perhaps it's because I'm not wearing a headset, but I do have a good mic. And I apologize for having a window behind me. But when you've got a face for radio like I have, you want as much behind you as possible to try and hide my face and the chins that you mentioned. Oh, yeah, I won't go into the other bit I was going to share. So anyway, in normal life, cybersecurity is often an afterthought. But with COVID-19, I think it's got a lot worse. With companies having to move users from the comparative safety of the corporate network to their homes, it's a bit like a medieval castle sending its loyal subjects outside of the city walls, whilst gangs of marauding pillagers roam the countryside. And that's how I'm seeing some of the whole COVID piece at the moment. So I'm going to cover a few different subjects. First one is phishing. For those of you who don't know, aren't familiar with the term, which should be very few these days. I've even seen adverts on television about phishing, which has been quite reassuring. But phishing is when cyber criminals lure the unsuspecting computer user into opening an attachment or clicking on a link. And believe it or not, the criminals out there are already using COVID-19 as bait. We've got some questions that came in earlier, and I'm going to cover off some of those. But as I mentioned before, with the users at home not having any proper protection from the city walls or through their boundary devices that they would normally have on a network, it leaves them more susceptible, I would say, to some of the phishing attacks. So what can we do? I think it's about educating the users. So you need to tell the users about the risk of phishing as you did I would say in peacetime. It is a bit like peacetime and wartime, but with COVID-19, I think it's more relevant to actually educate the users, because many of the networks out there no longer have some of their boundary protection that would remove some of the phishing emails as they appear. So education is absolutely key. And you can get onto a little bit more technical. We can add elements to subjects on emails to say that they're coming from an external source. I've seen an increase in this, and with some of our clients wanting to have that enabled, to try to warn users not to click on links that the email that says it's from their CFO isn't actually from even within their organization. And it's also worth running if you can, running a COVID-19 phishing assessment, so that you can test the users and also get a baseline of how your users may respond to a genuine phishing attack. That should then take them onto onto some education piece to hopefully teach them a little bit about what might have gone wrong. Next subject was really about cloud services. We've mentioned it earlier. Now, the cloud, for those, it was once referred to me as a cloud is just somebody else's computer running a service extremely well. And I think that kind of sums it up. I think many users are adopting cloud services where they've had internal email and that their deployed users can no longer access that email or other services. They've adopted some cloud services in order to the cloud services in order to provide those users those services without them having to enter the network which they've left behind. But often with them being able to see that network, it also means that the attackers can often see that network as well. So there's a few things we can do to try and help that. First thing is multi-factor authentication. For those that don't know, obviously, to get into most of your emails, you need a username, which is often your email address, and a password, which is occasionally compromised. So what we've also done, what they also provide is multi-factor authentication. And what that enables you to do is you need that extra piece of the puzzle. And that extra piece of the puzzle could be an app running on your mobile phone. So in theory, what an attacker would need is not just your username, not just your password, but also access to your mobile phone to be able to put the additional authentication measure into the logon screen to give access to that to the cloud services. For us, it's really quite important. We see we've got a security operations center where we're monitoring some of the clients' data, and we can't believe the amount of attempts to break into the cloud services that are out there. It is really quite interesting to see. And we've also seen an uptake in this with the COVID-19, where those bad people out there are trying to take advantage of these weaker systems, these weaker, poorly secured cloud services. We can also look at the configuration. If you've deployed a cloud service fresh, or hopefully even if you've deployed it some time ago, it's well worth looking at how it's been configured. There's some really good settings, and if you're using G Suite or Office 365 or any of the others, there's some really good tutorials out there where you can see how you can better secure your systems. And even with Office 365, you can even put data loss prevention in there to stop some of the emails being sent with sensitive data outside of your organization. And finally, on the cloud services side, you can also monitor your cloud services. They provide logs of who's doing what, when, where. I mentioned earlier about our SOC. We pull in those logs and have a look at them and build up profiles of the different people that are running attacks against those cloud services. And we, one of the, I think it was Nathan was talking about VPNs. He's not, he didn't cover it because it's more of a security thing. So with a VPN, with all these users being moved outside the city walls, outside of the protection of their network, into their own homes, they quite often have to access those services within their corporate network. A VPN provides effectively, it allows them to reach into their corporate network and reach those services that are available there. So they can access their work from home. But with that, what it also means is hackers can do that too. And again, we've seen a huge uptake in the bad guys out there scanning networks, looking for VPNs in order to try to compromise them. It's almost, I referred to it recently as it's like hyenas near a watering hole that have smelt the scent of a wounded animal. The hackers have no scruples, no conscience, and they're quite happy to take advantage of anyone who's struggling to secure their networks. And again, like with the VPNs, once their VPN is up there, quite often with cloud services, what you need to ask yourself is, do you need a VPN? And if so, what is it going to access? Where's it going to appear inside the internal network? But one of the most important things that we insist upon, certainly with our users using a VPN, is that they again use multi-factor authentication as part of that login, just to ensure that they can't, that the bad guys need that extra piece of the puzzle as well to exploit any weaknesses in the VPN. Also mentioned before, it's worth monitoring the VPNs quite closely. You can use in some of the geo data that comes from the addresses, the source addresses. You know whether the people are coming from a country that perhaps you don't have any staff. Certainly one of our clients in Bath, they like us to report on anyone that connects to their VPN from outside of the UK, which is interesting, especially in I was going to say in peacetime again, but outside of COVID-19, it's quite interesting to see some of the holiday destinations of their directors as they're lying on a beach connecting in through the VPN. But on in the current climate, it's quite interesting to see if any of the VPN services have been compromised. And finally, remote desktop protocol. This is a way where you can connect to a desktop and reach into maybe a server or something else. And basically that desktop will appear as though it's on your screen. Apologies to anyone if I'm teaching them to suck eggs and they do this on a regular basis by me using these basic terms. But what we're seeing is there's where firewalls, etc., allow someone to access these RDPs straight from the internet, it can be extremely risky. We would always advocate that remote desktop protocol is used through a VPN where possible to try to protect that vulnerable piece of data. And a few other bits. How am I doing for time? I'm doing okay-ish. I did say at the start, I did warn you that I do ramble on a bit. So there's a few other security considerations to think about. How are you going to update your operating systems for your home users? Ordinarily, quite often, the home users would still circle back. If they regularly work from home anyway, before this COVID-19, they would probably come back to the office periodically and receive updates for their operating systems. And more importantly, less obviously, the third-party applications, your Adobe Flash, and some of the other applications that might be sat on your laptop. And it's something to consider as this goes on beyond 3 weeks, into 4 weeks, into 2 months. It's about updating those applications, because be assured that as vulnerabilities are released, the attackers out there will be looking for those applications to exploit. Full disk encryption, obviously, a lot of companies have bought large numbers of laptops because they didn't have them for their staff to work from home. Quite often they're sent to either directly to the homes of their employees, or they've been configured very quickly. It's worth just considering full disk encryption so that if those laptops go missing, are stolen, are lost, that you're not losing all the sensitive data. Don't forget GDPR is still there, and the loss of that sensitive data can bring some serious ramifications to businesses. Also, what are your staff doing? There are ways that you can monitor some of the activity. Looking at antivirus, if you've got a cloud-based antivirus solution, you can look on the central portal and quite often see whether anyone has any detections, any infections, and it's worth just keeping an eye on that. And finally, we're looking at insider threat. It's a big thing for us. An insider threat is where your users aren't behaving very well. Perhaps they're taking sensitive data without 2 seconds. I don't know if you can hear that, but as always, I get a Teams message from someone halfway through, and it's someone who should know better. But so I've lost my track. So insider threat is a big thing of losing sensitive data or intellectual property. Obviously, where your users have gone home, you can't keep an eye on them the same. And you just need to keep an eye on that, the potential for losing data through that means. Obviously, at the moment, it's very difficult, and it's a risk that people are having to take, but it's something to consider. We have had a couple of questions in, he says. So the questions we've had on were from Slido. And it's, do I need to be worried about the Zoom password hacking thing? As was mentioned in the previous talk, Zoom has had a bit of a kick in. There are issues with the passwords. There are issues with the traffic being routed through China. And it's up to you really to make that risk managed decision as to whether that is going to affect you. We would suggest that you update to the latest version of Zoom when you download it onto your desktops, etc. As it's got a better encryption. And what it's worth considering is, because they've had such a kicking and because they've worked very hard to secure it, I think now, hopefully, Tez, touching wood, that it would actually be a little bit more secure than it was. But it is one of those decisions. The hackers will probably move on to one of the other video conferencing suites now that Zoom is a little bit more secure. And the other question was about online scams. What online scams should we be aware of at the moment? Basically, what we're finding is that the criminals out there are trying to use COVID-19 to exploit people in every way, shape or form, whether that's SMS messages, phone calls, fake products, fake sites, phishing. They're trying to utilize every single means at their disposal to try to call upon people's weaknesses around COVID-19. So that, you'll be pleased to know, is the end of the presentation. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask away.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. So we've just covered off two of the questions that came through on Slido.
Andy, could you mute yours? I think we're getting a bit of loop back there on the audio. Thanks.
And we've gone through two of the questions on the Slido, and we have one more, which actually kind of ties into asking a few more questions about Starleaf, actually, and why we've chosen it as a platform this morning. Will, can you tell us more about Starleaf? The question was, how much is Starleaf and what's included? But why are you advocating Starleaf?
Oh, I think it's worth saying that we are we're multi-vendor, right? So we don't just stick our flag in Starleaf. We've chosen it because an awful lot of companies have turned Zoom off, right? We've had whole countries and certainly a lot of law firms have said, listen, we're just not willing to take the risk with Zoom right now because it has been given such a public kicking. There were all sorts of issues where there were previous things, as Andy quite rightly said, as long as you're on the latest version, then you don't have to worry about some of the hacks that people use where they could take over your mic and speakerphone, mic and camera if you had a Mac. But they're concerned about routing, that it's not truly encrypted from end to end, and that they're routing some of that traffic through China, and it's just worried a lot of people. The difference between Teams and Zoom and Starleaf is that Starleaf starts at a business grade, right? So the Zoom and Teams give you a very low cost entry point where you can pay £12 and be a pro user and host your own meetings. As soon as you want to do actual business services, though, and have your own branding on there and your own URL, and you want to have more than 10 people using it, suddenly Zoom becomes rather expensive, and you sort of hit an equal point. So Starleaf starts at about the £2,000 a year mark, and then depending on what you want and how many users are on it, then it just scales up from there. The nice thing they do is that they actually manufacture their own room systems, whereas Zoom and Teams don't. So I did see there was another question on there about what's the next big thing in video conferencing. And I would say it's all about the user experience, because if people find it difficult to use, they won't use it. If they have a bad experience because of bad audio or bad video or lots of breakup, then they won't want to use it. So it is all about how can you make it as simple as possible. And they're using things like Sense technology, so that as you walk into a video-enabled meeting space, it knows that you've arrived because it can see your Bluetooth ID coming off your mobile phone, and it knows who you are. It can see that you've come in and say, would you like me to start your meeting for you? And you just hit the big green button and off you go. And then if you walk out of that room into the next room, that meeting can follow you. And you can then choose to take that with you. So that's where we're seeing it going, is making it ultra easy for people to use it, but make sure that the experience is really, really high. Because if you look back over the last 10 years, people's interpretation of video is that it's ropey, and that you get dodgy pictures and pixelation and audio feedback and quality issues and all that kind of stuff. So that's the challenge, taking all this amazing technology, making it incredibly simple. I would say that's where we're at now. That's where we're moving towards.
Okay, I think that covers all of the Zoom type Starleaf questions. I can see a question on here for Andy, which is, do you have any links for the Office 365 security standard settings that you would recommend?
Just a minute. Off the top of my head, they are updating them all the time. I can certainly find them. I tend to Google them and go from there. But certainly Jeff, our CTO, he stays well on top of those settings, so we should be able to provide some links to those.
Brilliant. Okay, and then there's a few more questions about Zoom as well, about how do you change your password, those kind of things. We're going to send you a note at the end of this with everybody's details, so we can get in touch with you and share that information, I'm sure. I think it's literally just going in and changing your system within your password within Zoom, so logging in and finding the password settings.
Yeah. Anita, I'll forward those. One quick point that I would like to make, though, and this is a generic standard like security thing. I'm sure Andy would agree with me. If you've used the same password for Zoom as you use for a bunch of other things, please, just be aware that somebody has that password now, right? And Andy will wholeheartedly agree with me. Use of things like, password generators like LastPass and 1Password, so you have a different password for every service. are invaluable. And it's at times like that you kind of go, phew, thank goodness, all I've got to do is change one password than the same password across everything that I have out there. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
We see that all the time where users are using the same username, and well, obviously username because it's quite often their email address, but using that same password everywhere. Our record is 10 breaches, all with the same password for one poor individual. So yeah, absolutely change it. And someone's mentioned, have I been pwned? It's on the list of questions. It's well worth going on there, putting in your email address and seeing whether your email has been breached, but also it may tell you which passwords have been breached as well.
Excellent stuff. Nathan, I've just got one question for you. With businesses trying to look at new ways of promoting their services at the moment, are you seeing a particular interest in a certain thing, whether it's an app, or I know that you've worked with charities like Wiltshire Air Ambulance locally and helped them innovate with their fundraising with a fundraising game called Helifun. Is there anything else that's happened during the COVID-19 crisis that's kind of spurred you on project-wise?
Well, covering off a lot of what Andy and Will have been doing, really helping to virtualize teams has been the key thing at the moment. I think the shift right now has been much more around web and using your website that you already have to maximize that. So driving and connecting CRMs to website, making sure that you've got the functionality there and really kind of moving that into a shop window. The other side has been where a lot of businesses that are on charities as well, where traditionally their service offer has been a physical offer, how they virtualize that has been the biggest shift that we're seeing at the moment. So we've been doing a lot of work with organizations that provide healthcare services and consultations, particularly would be coming into an office to do that, and a kind of therapy center, being able to deliver that in a virtual way. So a lot of that is where we're seeing it moving, and that kind of blend across that. Less so about apps at the moment. I think the need for and the kind of response is one of pace, so therefore kind of apps aren't obviously the quickest thing to build out, and really just thinking about kind of using everyday technologies as best as possible to support that. So randomly been spending a lot of people, charities in particular, doing pub quizzes, so spend a lot of time connecting things together to help them to raise funds through that. But yeah, Wiltshire, we're hopefully releasing the second phase of the website soon, which is really exciting. So it's been in build, and we've just been waiting on some integrations to come through. And yeah, Helifun is doing great, and there's everyone should go play it. It's great fun, and it supports the charity too.
Excellent. Well, we'll call you the quiz master from now on then instead. Sounds like a plan.
I'm no good at quizzes, but I know how to run them online.
Well, I think it's about time for us all to wrap up now, but really appreciate you all joining us this morning. We will share an email after this with everybody's details. So if you want to connect with any of our experts, you can get in touch with them personally with any questions that you might have. I want to say a big thank you to Paul Oaten from Datasharp, who's been controlling things behind the scenes this morning. Thank you, Paul. And I hope the session's given you lots of food for thought, and I hope to be back networking. We normally run breakfasts at Cumberwell Park in Bradford-on-Avon on a regular basis, and those are on pause. And we also do tech awards for Swindon and Wiltshire. They were due to be hosted on the 21st of May, so we've extended the competition for a little while. We're having to innovate and change our things our end, but yes, please do come along to one of our networking events in person in the future, and we may host another webinar or two or so during lockdown as well. So thank you very much for joining. Take care, stay safe everyone, and we'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.